Okay, so today we're going to be looking at an HP Pavilion x360. This model is a 14-DH2075NR. I'll try to hold it up so you can see, hopefully, the model number there. And this is going to be just a disassembly video, so we'll be showing you how to take the laptop completely apart if you have to replace anything inside. So first thing we'll do is make sure, obviously, that the computer is off, and then we're going to flip it over to the back side here, and we are going to need a Phillips head screwdriver. This is a Phillips 0 from the iFixit kit. That should do everything fine, and then we have this magnetic screw tray here to sort everything out, so always a good idea to have. So first we're going to do is remove these two bottom screws here. There is two sort of on an angle right there and right there, and we're going to take those two out first. Put those on our tray. Now we also have 4 screws underneath these rubber pieces, so you're going to want to make sure that those are removed. These are just a pair of tweezers. Pry up a little bit on this corner here, and you can see we have a screw hiding underneath there. And the screws underneath these pieces are larger than the two that were taken out from down here, so just keep that in mind when you're putting it back together, of course. But we'll remove the screw over here. Put that on our tray. So now we're going to use our pry tool. This is just a guitar pick, credit card, or anything else. Usually that's really thin will work. Anything that isn't metal, because the metal will mar it up, the plastic, so you don't want to do that. So we're just going to insert our pry tool into where the two color pieces separate here. So that's the silver part, that's the black part. So we're just going to insert the guitar pick in between there and work our way down the machine. And you should hear that the plastic tabs that hold the two pieces together start to click. That is the separation happening. So once you kind of get it to where you can lift up, you can kind of just pull the bottom right off like that. And now we have our first look at the inside of the machine. So we have the fan here, we have the battery. This is a hard drive tray. They have this is actually a weight. They weigh it down so that way when you open the laptop, it doesn't flip over from the lack of weight on the palm rest side and the excess weight over here from the motherboard and everything else. Anyway, so the battery is here. Looks like we have a solid state drive. I'm not sure if that is NVMe or NGFF SATA, but we'll take a look at that soon. And we have this shield here. This probably protects the memory. I would assume that the memory is built in on this machine, especially judging by the size of this. I could be wrong, but we'll see in a second. And so we'll start by removing the battery. So I'll do that now. That's always a good idea to remove the battery first when you're finally getting into a machine, because you don't want to accidentally short out any components on the board and potentially risk damaging it. So you want to make sure that there's no power accessible anywhere in the machine, because even though it may not be on, there is still obviously potential on the motherboard in certain areas. So next we will look at this solid state drive. It looks like it's actually taped to the connector, so we'll have to pry up this tape right here. Okay, now we should be able to remove the drive. So the drive is removed like that. This is a TOUCHPAD drive. It's 256 NVMe drive. You can see it's got the single key in there. Throw that off to the side. And we're going to flip this up. We have this piece of adhesive down here also that is protecting some components. So we're going to remove that as well. And you can see underneath there, that's where this piece of tape is extended that protects the shield. So now that that's separated, we'll just kind of leave it off to the side for now. And we'll start to disconnect all the connectors. So down here we have the backlight connector. So we can flip the tab up like so, and then you should be able to pull the connector straight out like that. Same for the keyboard, which is next to it. You can flip that little black tab up and you should be able to pull the connector out like so. To the right here we have this little I/O board, which is our power button. So you can flip that tab up like I did before. I use a pair of tweezers to do it so you can see a little bit easier. And that will pull out like so. We have the fan connector down here. This one actually pulls straight out, so you should be able to just remove it like that. It should pull out. And up here at the top left we have our DC in jack. So we'll just connect that as well. Okay, and that's out. And now we will start trying to remove whatever else we can to remove the motherboard. So I'm going to have to look underneath this black tape here. It's pretty smart of HP to put this black tape here because it actually sort of protects the machine from dust and liquid and other things. Of course, liquid will naturally find its way in the machine, but it is a little bit of added layer protection there. So it looks like we have two motherboard screws down here. We have one here and one here. We also have one on the side, one up here, and one up there as well. So I'm going to remove those. And we're going to try to get this board out of the machine. So I will put that off to the side. And all these motherboard screws look like they're the same size. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that each one has a little triangle indicating that a screw is supposed to be there in the motherboard. And they're also labeled with the size. They're M2 by L3. And that is the size of the screw. And so that is out. Now we're going to also remove the heatsink on here because I also noticed that the black tape actually goes underneath the black tape there, and I don't know if there's a screw under there, so I'm going to remove the heatsink. And the best way to remove these is to do diagonal corners. So loosen a little bit at a time and go in a diagonal fashion. And that way you don't cause excess pressure on one part of the CPU die, the silicon, and accidentally damage it. So now that that's done, we see that this tape is kind of holding it to the machine, so I'm going to try to remove that tape. And you can see now that the actual heatsink is lifting up, so I can kind of use that to my advantage here by using a little bit of force to lift this tape up like so. You don't want to accidentally bend this because it's very thin copper, so don't pull too hard on the actual heatsink itself. But this tape is also pretty strong, so you're going to need to use your fingers and a little bit of force to actually be able to remove the adhesive on there. If you have a bit of rubbing alcohol or something like that, it might be a good idea now to put some inside the adhesive to sort of loosen it up. But I think we can get it out just fine with our hands, like so. And then now we should be able to lift it up without issue. We do have this foam here. That's up, so now the heatsink is removed. Throw that off to the side. And now we're going to remove our fan. So it looks like only one screw is holding that fan in here. And oh, nope, there's actually one down here as well. So we had one screw down here and one up there as well. And put those screws off to the side. And now the fan should pull right out. Like so. Put that off to the side. And so now I'm going to lift up this black tape again just to be sure we don't have any screws hiding underneath here. And we don't, but if you look, we actually have our LCD connector. And this, what I would believe, is the speakers. So for the speaker connector, that just will pull straight out. And pull it up like that. And the LCD connector has a little bit of tape blocking it, but it is a flex connector, or FPC connector if you will. And so when we pull that tape back, we can lift up the black tab. I'll use the tweezers for this. And this one's a little bit stronger, but see, lift up the black tab, and then you should be able to pull that out. There is also a little bit of tape holding the wire itself, so you might have to sort of pull that back in order to be able to actually get the cable out. See, it's out. And next we have the wireless card, which is over here. I will remove this sticker and remove this tape. You can see these are our two antenna wires. To lift these up, it's pretty simple. You just pry underneath and lift straight upwards, and they should pop right off. These are the really tiny ones, so they should come off quite easy. And then there's one screw holding the wireless card into the motherboard, so we can put that off to the side. And here we have, most likely this is our touchscreen or our camera or both. So I can lift that tape up, and then we have another flex connector, so it lifts up that black tab, and that will pull right out like that. And those wires are routed in down here into this little speaker assembly. But at this point we should be able to remove the motherboard. Now I noticed that there is a flex connector that's going underneath the board, so we're going to have to kind of lift the board out to be able to disconnect this on the bottom side there. So we will do that. I also noticed that we have one down here for the touchpad that's also underneath the motherboard. So what I'm going to do is just disconnect it from this side to give us a little bit more leverage there. And for our dummy hard drive down here, we can simply use the pry tool to lift up this tab, and then we should be able to pull that out like that. And you can see I disconnected it from here, so we'll leave it into the motherboard. But now you can see that the motherboard's starting to come out. So we will wiggle it a little bit, and we also have this bar up here. I'll sort of lift that up and over to give us more space there. And then I should be able to lift the motherboard out like so, and flip it this way because we do have this connector down here. And that is a flex connector also, so same story, just lift up the black tab. Or white tab in this case, and it should pull right out. And now the motherboard's out. Next we have this little speaker bar here, so we can unroute these cables, and the speaker is out like so. Next we have the screen assembly. So we just have two hinge screws on this side, and two hinge screws on the other side, which we will take all four out. Now we can open the laptop, and the top should separate from the bottom. And just like that, you have the palm rest out, and you have this LCD out. And of course you now have your power jack. This just pulls out like so. If you need to replace that, these boards obviously are one screw and they will come right out. And so that's pretty much it. It looks like the touchpad is potentially replaceable. It does actually look replaceable on this, so that's pretty cool. The keyboard is riveted in, so that does not appear to be replaceable. So in most instances with a bad keyboard, you're going to have to replace the whole top, this whole piece here. The part numbers for that will be in the description. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this video on how to disassemble an HP Pavilion x360 14-DH2075NR. If you thought this was helpful, please feel free to leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more of our videos, and we'll have some more videos coming soon.